Boom shakalaka. I think we're live. I think we are. I don't know what time that, I'm going to have to pay attention to that. There's this, it's a bit weird going live. Welcome. Thank you for joining. I'm super excited today. We're going to talk about saving the world. It's a great topic. And then also the second coming of Christ, which is a fruity topic as well. A juicy topic, I meant to say, but I was thinking juicy fruit. But there's first, I guess I want to say that there's a lot of different religious connotations to the second coming of Christ and what that means. There's lots of story and prophecy and different cool things that humans have come together to create with each other. It's all very amazing. So on this channel, I think most people are getting used to the idea that the way that I teach these things is all through symbolism, because the reality itself is only symbolism. It's symbolic of separation, but also symbolic of what we are in truth, and not distinctly real in the typical sense of that word. So the stories we craft are usually real happenings, you know. So for example, Peter Pan, that story came from a man, an author, who his mother made him promise that he would never grow up because she lost her son, his older brother. And so he ended up using this pain and trauma because he could never grow up properly into a man. He never really got masculine. He was very asexual, and to help release this, he created the Peter Pan story about, maintaining sort of innocence that way. And so essentially what I'm getting at is that when we have divine inspirations, humans then go and create the prophetic type or allegorical tales to describe what the prophet is seeing. So this is where pretty much all religious stuff has come from, including the concept of the second coming of Christ or the resurrection of Christ, and the kingdom of heaven or New Jerusalem coming in Revelations. So it's all very amazing stuff. And what it really boils down to is that the world right now is going through a dark night of the soul. Both collectively and individually in our different timings, which all cycling together, synchronize in together in harmony. Despite how it seems, everything is on time and on purpose, and there is divine timing here. Time itself isn't real, and what we end up realizing is that the world itself actually can't really be changed until everyone's on board, basically, with the peace of unity. Really, the world will not properly reflect fifth density or Christ consciousness until all of the beings vibrate with enough of a degree of that Christ consciousness that the miscreations and fear stop. Like, people aren't afraid of each other, basically. That's what causes pretty much all of our problems, is that we're afraid of each other for various great reasons from the past, right? So the way that happens is through Saturn's lifting of the anchor of time. As time lifts from the illusion and becomes less of a substantial thing in the illusion, the being's eternal presence, and understanding of infinity increases. The capacity to notice infinity increases as we realize the irrelevancy of time. The irrelevancy of time causes the ego to lose sight of its fear of death, and it essentially inspires awakening. So you could say that astrologically, what Saturn is doing is breaking everyone up, releasing anchors in its returnings, is really what it's doing. And Saturn is essentially releasing what it can on its returns for that soul so that it can eventually release time, which is the release in the fear of death. Essentially, the being hails death as king until it doesn't. And this doesn't happen until this time anchor is unveiled and the ship is set to sea, and the oceans then get kind of crazy. But that's when we tend to have the open pineal gland, and we'll feel usually like it's more a collected, more calmness as we navigate this timeless, eternal state and still manage to be here and now. And that's what bringing the kingdom is down, and that's the second coming of Christ. That's what it is the removal of all fears, the release of all fears, which means that we have to let go of the egoic trauma that we had. The trauma that we identify with in our separate self, in our hurt self, our pain body that Eckhart would call it, that part of us is not real. We have to realize that what we did experience in these places is illusory. Like, we couldn't have possibly been harmed. We're an infinite being. It certainly seemed like it hurt, and we should feel all of our feelings. But it helps to feel all of the feelings and then remind ourselves that didn't really happen that way, though. It seemed to be that way. It seemed that this person harmed me, but I'm an infinite being and I know that's not possible. We're trying to orient ourselves that way. And there's actually a quote that I just opened up from A Course in Miracles that I liked. This is a really good thing to remember, because doubt always comes. Doubt along the way will come and go and come again. When you forget, remember that you walk with him and his word upon your heart. And so what are they talking about? His word. So within you is the word, the Christ, the love of divinity, the word sealed in the frame. That's what we are, is the walking word. It's a way of referencing the original thought of God, the word. It's reminding us of what we are in truth, which is that the doubt is just not real. Like, we can just try to move forward, courageous, trusting. Like, we've gone far enough, right? Like, we're starting to get to places where we can, if you're following along with me in resonance, then you're probably in a nice place to no longer be fearful of things, right? And that's what we're asked to try and do and be, and that's how we change the world, is we be an example of it. I think it was Gandhi that said, "Be the change you want to see in the world." The world revolts to this change, though. It's important that we know that. So the way we do this is we realize that we have all these different archetypes that we play, right? We play the teacher, the parent, the student, the cook, the cleaner, the whatever, right? We're doing all these different things. And we realize that each of these different things has its own sort of persona style attached to it. And what we can do is try to become present enough to bring the Christ presence to that persona or that archetype. And try to do that in public. Like, try to not, and it's very important we realize that we're not talking ever really about Jesus, unless we specify that. We're talking about the frequency of 5D love, or Christ consciousness love, the divinity of all, knowing that it's like pretending to be something else in that moment. It's not pretending in a deceptive way. It's right invested into it. It's bringing that light to whatever the thing is that you're doing. And what do they say? Before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. Like, most of us are wanting to attain a level of enlightened peace that helps us feel comfortable, and then we probably want to serve people in some way. And to do that, we have to notice, like, if we can clean up all of these archetypes we have, basically, like when we're a student, perhaps we're arrogant, right? So we want to argue with the teacher. Perhaps we're noticing that in ourselves, that we don't really want them to tell us how it is. We that type of thing. But there's a reason we're sitting in front of them and they're in the teacher role. We should listen and be humble. However, it's also important to speak our truth and to question things and to, do these things. So there's a balance to be had here, right? And that's really all I'm getting at, is that if we can learn to balance the polarities of teacher and student into harmony, that you're both of those things simultaneously in all of your interactions anyway, and you can bring that Christed presence or just balanced love to that moment, then you're not gonna be worried about, you're essentially not going to be worried about what they're saying and whether or not you agree, and if you know better than them, and those thoughts don't occur to us anymore, because that part of our persona is taking a nap. It's like for lack of work, we've retired it. The part of us that wants to do that stuff. Some of that can be quite useful, right? There's a period of learning that we're doing where, like, sometimes, and especially me as a pretty intelligent person, also outspoken, there's been times where I've went out a little too far and I've been slapped back and really embarrassed by it in the past, where, like, I've just presumed I knew better and then said something, and then it's like, oh, actually, you're just an ignorant fool. So thank you for that little outburst, Sean. And I realize immediately what I've done. I don't really do that anymore, but I've done it in the past in professional settings and different encounters, very challenging, embarrassing moments for a past life of mine. You could say a dream I had once. We'll begin to notice, actually, this is something I was reflecting on earlier this morning, was people sometimes talk about me and with me, and they'll mention like how I've had like some type of problem, so they can understand something about me. Like they're mentioning like a struggle that I went through one time, and like reflecting on these, I'm like, I don't know how to have this conversation anymore, because I'm like, I don't even remember that being a problem anymore. I just remember a dream of some kind. I remember the details of it, but not the way they're reflecting it to me. And I appreciate that they're attempting to understand and relate, right? But I wanted to highlight that we know we've gotten to a good place with our healing when we can reflect on some of these troubling things and they just feel like they were a dream. Perhaps they were a nightmare, but they'll just start to feel like a dream, because we realize the unreality of the harm we thought we had happen, or the truth of what we thought was going on is shifting, right? So we're not like wrapped up in the narrative of things. We're instead seeing that like soul's consciousness was living through varied vessels, playing out a drama, and it was painful when we thought we were in the drama, but I don't really remember quite exactly what that is exactly anymore. It's more just foggy to think of it that way now. There are certainly areas for me, I'll say personally, that I have challenge around that area still, like where perhaps like with my children, there's like wounding there for me still as a parent who had to leave a marriage and move out. We couldn't get things to harmonize, and I couldn't seem to make it work. So there was no real other option. And there's lots of like pain from that, separation pain from like being with the children. And I was a very involved father, or always tried to be, and very, into the kids, doing all the bedtime stuff, doing all the things, and then suddenly gone, right? And then only being able to see them like once a weekend. It was like my nightmare, to be honest. And this is when we start to experience revelations, like the book of Revelations, This is like when my dark night of the soul started to really kick in, was around then. That was after the shattering happens of your limited perception just being blown apart in front of your face. You'll usually have an experience of like bliss or out of body stuff, and then you'll come back and things will be weird. We don't understand the world really anymore, and our whole belief system falls apart, and we don't even know what's going on. And so it's kind of nightmare fuel at the time. So there's a whole bunch of stuff that happens, but now reflecting on these things, they more feel like simple dreams, and I see more just what I learned from it. So there's like this almost just gratitude for the dream. Like, wow, what an interesting dream that was. I learned a lot from that. That's sort of how I see almost all of my past, even as early as today. Like I do this constantly, sort of cleansing the cup, releasing the cup of whatever's being built up. We tend to hold on to our emotions and we don't realize we're doing it. So we have to, depending on what stimuli we're getting, we have to constantly release that, whatever our way to do that is. My way is usually like music and dancing around and poetry, that type of thing. Like I might, if I'm irritated by people, I might listen to some like really heavy metal and just rage it out for a minute. Because I know that in doing that, I'm releasing, like, I'm enjoying it, right? I'm turning my fury into joy is what I'm doing. And so there's people that talk about like low vibration, high vibration music. That's just perception. It is true that like metal is more chaotic and stimulates a certain frequency of consciousness more, the lower energy centers. Yeah, that's true. But what is that? How's that bad, right? It's not bad. It's not bad. It's music. It's wonderful. So I don't know why I'm mentioning that, but we can certainly shift our vibrations. And if we have distortions in our red energy center and our orange energy centers, and then we're listening to metal, we might get angry, right? Like we might just get angry, and that's not good for us. So that's something to keep in mind. It's the same with all music. Like if we're listening to stuff that's really like making us really upset and stuff, like we're sort of triggering ourselves into an emotional state. And either there's something for us to really see there. That's usually the case. There's something to really see about this emotional state. Like that's one of my main tips actually, is that the emotion, the cup of emotion that you're offered has all the gory details that you actually want in it. The only thing is that we resist feeling it. We're like, we want to try to be like, oh, I'm feeling lots of stuff right now. What is it? What is this? And this was really hard for me. Like I was cut off from these feelings prior to the awakening, like quite cut off. Like I actually thought I was psychopathic. I was researching psychopathy and sociopathy because I'm like, I don't know if I have the right feelings because I've been so shut off. And I wasn't hurting any people or anything, but I was just like, I don't care about the things these people care about. I don't understand what's happening. This was like right prior to that shattering that I talked about. And we are learning to purify the energy centers. So we do that by like going into some of those frequencies, like metal, for example. Like if we listen to heavy metal music and it makes us, oh, like that's something to consider about what that is. Because it should be like, we should be able to like endure it, right? It shouldn't really cause us to, or if I'm listening to opera, like I shouldn't get so, oh, it's just, I hate it. Like that's odd. It's an odd thing for us to let that stimulus affect us that way. So there's things to look at even in those simple little things of what we like and don't like. That's where duality is the most interesting. Why do we like what we like? Why do we not like what we don't like? Is there a way for us to appreciate what we don't like though? Can we appreciate its value or purpose? That's how we resolve the polarities and like let the opinions go, right? Violet's World says, I'm grateful for all of it and realize it all had to happen exactly the way it did for me to be now. Gratitude above all, and forgiveness allows me to be now. Exactly, forgiveness. Thank you for mentioning forgiveness, and thank you for joining. Forgiveness is the way. That's the trick, right? And it's primarily self-forgiveness. In fact, Judgment Day, which happens, we have an experience of this. We have Judgment Day where we sort of observe all the ways we've judged ourselves, thinking we're judging other people as well. But we've just judged ourselves and projected it, and judged ourselves as well entirely. And we see all of that, and then we do the final judgment, which is to stop judging. Choose to stop judging. And then we are, that's usually then we'll have an experience of feeling anointed in a way. And it all manifests in different ways for people. It's unique and infinite in that way. Hi, Debbie. Thank you for joining. Sarah T says, it begins to feel like a past life. I think it's important to leave it there rather than dredge up old wounds we have healed. I thought my memory was going, but realized it's just not important to hold in my consciousness anymore. Thank you for saying that. Yeah, that's exactly it. Our memory, the way our memory works is it energizes a past event with an emotion of some kind. And then that's what we sort of call on in the memory. If it's not emotively powered, the memory just lets it go. So for example, someone that's really good at like remembering dates and times or something probably felt that that was an important thing to have. So they care about being able to be someone who can do this for some reason, right? So as we release these attachments we might have had like that, the mind just, it can't hold on to something that hasn't been energized with attention, hasn't been energized with awareness and intention or attention. All attention has emotion with it. Like if you give your attention to anything, you're giving love energy at it. Whatever it is, a thought, a feeling, a being you're looking at, whatever. You're sending love energy at it. And it is receiving it as well, sort of. It's receiving its own experience of it. But when it's not emotionally charged anymore, the mind, it just slips out of us. It's like almost sometimes challenging even to remember exactly. Like I used to think that that thing was horrible. I can't even remember what my problem was with it. Like things like that. Like because the problem is no longer emotionally charged in a way where like the problem is still seen as some type of problem. It's already been like resolved. So if we can do inventory, and the quickest way to notice what our kingdom's like is to look at our closest relationships and just how do we feel about these individuals in our life? How do we feel about them? And all of our experiences with them throughout our entire life. All of the people that are the most close to us, how do we feel about all that? And then we look bigger and we go to the society. How do we feel about all this? But first, like to really know ourselves best, we go directly to our family. That's where our biggest soul karmic stuff is existing, right? Family and just very close soul ties, that type of thing. It will all tell a karmic story that will relate usually to some type of god mythos of some kind. Like with, Zeus and someone and Odin, and, it's going to relate somewhere to something in like, perhaps even your own heritage. It's going to like tell a similar tale in a whole different manner, but symbolically it's telling the same tale because we just repeat these tales. We have like a whole bunch of the tales and we repeat them in the environment that we're in symbolic ways to keep learning the same lesson, basically. You could see that like in this illusion, there's almost templated, and we could look at just the zodiacal archetypes that are templated onto beings. And so the Christ itself ascends beyond the archetypes to merge all the archetypes and then bring the balanced merging into whatever situation. So it's actually not as hard as people make it for themselves. There's all these people that are like, I gotta heal. And what you're saying is, I'm wounded. And that's, I don't like to hear that. I get upset, but because it's the opposite of the truth. You're perfect, right? Are you not? Because I thought you were. So it's sort of like this, we delay our own progress by believing in our wounds. And honestly, the best way that I can fathom for people to learn to step outside of that is A Course in Miracles. A lot of people don't really like it, but it's honestly, it's uncomfortable. It's an uncomfortable book to read. I'll tell you. But there's treasure in there. There's treasure in discomfort, right? We learn valuable things in our most unpleasurable moments, if we're open to that aspect. If we can get away from the displeasure of it all. And honestly, I was thinking about this morning, like Pisces. So I'm a Pisces, 0 degrees Pisces sun, Aquarius cusp. So I'm like kind of a grating, annoying truth speaker who also has an imagination and like doesn't feel like he's a part of the reality that he's speaking truth about. And so I'm very annoying for people in that way. Also, Pisces are sort of like, at least my experience is sort of like, we're a fish, but we've been taken out of the river and we're flopping around being like, what the fuck is this? So we learn quickly to escape, and we'll do it mentally, whatever, but we do it through drugs and alcohol as well. We're known to be addictive that way. We just escape, we leave. I'm not sure why I'm talking about this, but I think because that's like been one of my superpowers to try to maintain, like, if we're getting disturbed in a situation, we can remember that we aren't even here really. Like this, we just aren't even really here. So just become nothing. And you'll notice like people actually just like stop involving you in like in whatever's happening. You're not even there. And it's funny to talk about it, but you'll find that actually it brings a calming presence to the environment around you if you do this. It's like you're emanating peace because you're nothing. So you just become a conduit for allness to just emanate from you. Everybody just chills the frig out, basically around you. I noticed this the most in the mental health hospital. When the patients would start to go bananas, I would just fall into nothing and they'd all just chill out. And, it wasn't that I was doing anything. It was God, because I just was nothing. Sean wasn't there. So it's not about Sean. I hope that's clear. But we can learn to remember that we can do this. And this also karmically, it helps us to navigate, like if someone's being really challenging. One time I remember I was being yelled at by somebody for like 20 or 30 minutes, and I was just meditating through it. And this was one of the first times I did this. But this time I made the mistake of consciously and like obviously meditating, closing my eyes and sitting while they're yelling at me in my face. And I wouldn't recommend doing that. That upsets them. It's upsetting, right, to be ignored. But I was just like, you know what, I'm going to use, at the time, I'm a strange person. I was like, you know what I'm going to do? This is kind of the worst. I'm going to make this productive, and I'm going to try to meditate and remember my peace through this screaming and whatever insults are being shared with me. So it's this practice that can become like automatic that way. It's very protective even. And I do recommend it, even though some might call it spiritual bypassing. It could be. It could be. So we got to navigate ourselves with that. Pay attention to, like, are we just avoiding because we're terrified? Or are we just being practical? There's no reason to get involved in this stuff going on. The best thing I can do is hold the presence of the All One for a moment. You know, even if it's 10 seconds, you'll notice that it makes a difference. I promise. I promise. Debbie says, the sooner we release the emotional attachment to the situation, the faster we heal and return to a higher, more peaceful vibration. Absolutely. Exactly. E says, interesting. Christ consciousness ascends above all the archetypes to merge all the archetypes. Yeah. I think I said that. Is that what I said? Because that's a great thing. That's a great way to put it. I'm not sure. It's so funny. I don't even know what I'm saying half the time. More than half the time. Yeah, Christ consciousness, like to be, so an adept is one who is seeking to discipline all the aspects of the personality. Become the Christ. The Christ presence, with having perfected that, would be a master, a Jesus, or Krishna, or Buddha, would be like master level, right? So the adept is just understanding that the disciplines of the personality is how I be the Christed presence, or the fifth dimensional, fifth density presence of God here, like become Son of God here now. So we'll notice that sometimes in certain ways we can do it. We can do it great in some ways. And then in other ways, we're not as good at it. And that's because the archetypes in us are a bit malformed. Just from past and things, it's not a problem. It's just how it is. So what we do is we take our scalpel, really, and we navigate our own personality to cut away things that are like not Christy. If it's not Christy, it's got to go. That's all. And I don't mean Jesus-y. Thanks, E. I did say it. Yeah. I thought I said it. I thought I might have said it. I don't know. It's in and out. It's just in and out and gone. I watch my own videos after because I never have any clue. I'm like, I wonder if that went well. It felt well. It felt like it went well. It's so funny. It's such a weird thing, especially the anal. I used to be afraid to speak in front of people. I also used to be afraid to go on YouTube or do any of this. I used to be terrified of public speaking, terrified of it. Luckily, someone somewhere, I read a book called The Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday. Holiday. I think that's what it was. And he was just like, or he made me realize, well, I'm afraid of speaking to people, so I have to, at the time I was working in IT, and I said, well, I guess I'll just teach orientation to all the new employees and students every month. And there were like 50 people. And, you know, like at my age too, I was like 24, 25. And it was all like nursing students. They're like 20 to 24-year-old nursing students, mostly women. And like that made it so much more, oh my God, for me at the time. And so it's really interesting to look at how we let go of these things. And it's usually through going into the thing we're afraid of. So like in our archetypes, in our personality, the discipline of our personality, we can notice that the reason that we're acting a bit shitty in one of the ways, like we're not doing it quite right, is because somewhere we're afraid of something, or we're like getting offended by something, or like we have opinions and things. And opinions, we don't really want to be acting out of opinion and emotionality, which is basically emotional opinion. It's more just opinion. We want to be acting out of love, which is opinionless and conditionless unconditional in its truth, right? So if there's opinion and emotionality, like it's an elated opinion or a negative opinion, sorrowful thing, despair thing, then it's not true. It's an opinion of the moment. Like we've been stimulated into an opinion, and we don't really want to react from that place. And that's why I was talking about that allness, that coming back to the I am presence in the mid conversation, if you have to, just pop out of there, you know. Or even you'll get to a place where you can do this while like appearing to be still with them, engaged in whatever they're saying. And it may be considered rude. I don't care. They're being probably disturbing. So I'm ignoring them. I mean, it's fine. I don't have to listen to them at all. You're not obligated to listen to people say bullshit to you. Like, you're just not. You know, however, follow the laws and things, of course. You don't want to go to prison over it, probably. Although you can, right? You can certainly stand up against whatever you want. But that's part of the reason that I was talking about all of this today, is because the world affronts the Christ presence in us as it rises. We actually test ourselves with the world to see how well we can hold it. We have to look at it that way. Instead of the world's testing us, like we're against the world. No, the world life is with us, testing us, with our consent. It's in accordance with us, or it wouldn't exist. That's just a fact of metaphysics. We can't observe things we're not the like vibration of. We can't see things we are not like in some way, which is a confronting truth. But it's because we are all things, so everything we see, we are like in some way. It resonates in some way with what we are in truth, which is a collective light. We're basically just a blob of light. So as the child of God, the Son of God, the whole earth, right? Yeah, every moment is opportunity. Yeah, time actually, as time becomes less real, time is this just awesome opportunity to experience illusion. It's awesome. And the illusion wants to pull us back into it as well. Maybe I'll talk a little bit about our prayer, or affirmations, we could call them. What we're actually doing when we're like, oh, I just really want peace. Oh, God, I want peace. Do you hear me? Do you hear me, Archangel Michael? I just want peace. Do you hear me, Pleiadians? I want peace. You know, however we do this, what we are doing is we are asking for stimulus and catalyst to arrive to awaken us. Our soul is calling for awakening. Now, here, awakening tends to be thunderclaps. It tends to be lightning strikes. The Tower card comes to mind. Crumbling destruction of something within us. Something just dies. That's what tends to be these revelatory experiences. So when we are calling for peace, and I can't handle this, I need peace, we're actually calling for more catalyst. And that's okay, because that's what we want. What we want is peace, and the way to peace is through the obstacle. Back to what I was saying earlier, the obstacle is the way. It's when we call for the peace, then we get triggered into pain and dyingness of self. The ego, part of the ego, is screaming basically as it dies. We get stuck in that and we resist it, and we go, no, I'm going to hang on to this part because it helps me feel safer. I think, but I'm wrong. So what we want to do is embrace the pain and be like, yeah, I'm in. Let's feel this stuff. let's let this stuff come up, right? Let's see if we can even turn it. And this is more probably later, but see if we can turn it into something amazing like Peter Pan. Right? That's what the Christ does. The Christ takes something that is dense and low and whatever, and exalts it and says, look, divinity, here I am. Right? That's what the Christ does. And we have that in us. And we can see that, like, as a parent, maybe I don't quite do it so good because I'm pretty wrapped up for myself. I'm pretty wrapped up in like the humanness of things when I'm parenting, because I'm not sure how to get the Christ stuff going the right way yet in that realm. But I'm doing my best and I'm doing well. I think I'm a great dad. I think my kids love me, and that's all I care about. If they love me, if I'm loving them and they're loving me, and people are happy and safe, then I'm doing fabulous. That's my metrics. And you know, if they're not happy, actually, my son, he seems to not quite be too happy lately. You know, and so that's hard, right? So that's what I mean is like I struggle personally a little bit, and like, how do I bring the Christ to that at his age? Happy I Love You Day. Those of you who have been watching know that I have that alarm for me and my kids. When I was watching them all through this summer, we would shout and scream and dance Happy I Love You Day. Lucy says, I'm a Pisces. Yes, escape from body through zoning out, or I'll physically leave situations. Used to be a huge drinker too, but stopped that. Yeah, and so what I'm saying is, like, we can actually zone out while holding an I am presence. This is, thank you for bringing that up, because this is a perfect distinction of this. The difference between the escaping to just depart, like, oh, I'm not here, to being like, I'm here. The one is here with this now. Sean's gone. So everyone just tends to just chill out, and they don't tend to notice what's going on. It's perfect. It's great. Great little trick. It's hard to do, like if my kids are fighting and stuff. That's when this is like something I'm learning right now. Is like, can I just like do an atom bomb of peace? That's basically what it is, right? It's just peace. It's like commanding peace into the room. Really, it is. And depending on how well we can kind of do it, I don't even want to say it's doing it. It's like just getting out of the way for it to come. We don't have to say anything. We just emanate this peace, and everyone just chills out if we do it well. I say we do it well, but we don't really do it, so it's confusing to speak about it. It's a miracle, is what it is. So we can take that escapism, turn it into this amazing, like, kind of mystical miracle thing that works really well, really, really well. And we can learn how to, like, get consciously involved in, like, when we're going to do it, sort of, because of our awareness and presence. Usually the cities aren't things that we want to, like, try to engage in, but something like peace, I don't know about you guys, but I can't see a problem with just dropping peace where I am. How could that be a problem, right? If they get peaceful, great. If they don't, I mean, great. I don't know. I'm going to be peace now. That's how I see it. I'm not trying to change them. That's really important. I'm not trying to calm them. I'm not trying to stop them. I'm trying to just be out of the way so peace can be me. Life can live peace through the vessel, that all of the energy of Sean is peace. Because Sean's ran off somewhere. And so you end up taking that escapist sort of trick that the Pisces kind of innately has. Other people can totally do this. It's not just a Pisces thing. It's just that Pisces are, like, good at it somehow. It's like natural for them. They learn it. We learn it through trauma, basically. We learn it through being like, this place is gross. Like, I don't want to live here. So I'm going to live in the clouds. And that becomes our superpower as well. But Thank you, Mud Chat. Lemuria Lynn, Starseed Wannabe, loving this title. Oh, I'm glad. I'm glad. Yeah, I mean, that's what it really is. Is the second coming of Christ is the resurrection of the Christ within every person here. It's not some of you are going to make it and some aren't. That's not how this will work. We've decided as a collective that no one's left behind. There are people that are on another path that will leave. They'll go elsewhere. But everyone that's on the positive path, we're doing it all together. There's no like them and us, really. It's us and us and us and us and us. And even on the negative path, they can switch on a dime. And if we practice forgiveness, they're with us, right? Which we will practice forgiveness. We'll have no choice because we'll see the collective as one. And you know, probably it'll take about 100 years or so for the collective to really shift into just unity being the obvious way. You know, I'd like to see it in my lifetime. So we'll see. We'll see if I can live to be 150 or something. But we'll see what happens. I don't think that'll be the case for me. I feel that my time here will be somewhat limited, probably. Probably in my 50s or so. I'll take off. Violetta says every moment we have is an opportunity to practice becoming the peace we wish to see. Yeah, exactly. E says embracing emotion / pain reminds me of sweat lodge company ceremony. Yeah, exactly. There's also, once we're not scared of pain, like when we've done enough of our pain, we are not scared of pain anymore. We're actually more like there's a sweetness in it. We can learn that in the pain exists this like real delicious treat of some kind. And so we end up having like this, like when pain comes up, we get excited almost. For me, I mean, that's my experience. But I would say that the more unthreatenable we are, the more eternal we know ourselves to be, the more of spirit we're inhabiting the frame as, the more we understand that the pain is where the fruit is, right? And that's why I actually titled the video the way that I did, is because religion, what I'm trying to help people do a little bit is bridge spirituality, true spirituality, with religion. Because within religion is spirituality. It does exist in there. But the religion, or the dogmatic aspects of religion, the control-based paradigms of religion, distort things and cause confusion. And then the spiritual people that are like on the other side, against all of the control, they can see it, they tend to discard the teachings that are in religion as well. Basically, like they'll think that Jesus was like a bad person, or they'll, essentially Jesus takes on the weight of the judgment of people that don't, they just assume Jesus did it. If you look at what Jesus actually taught and said, all he really ever did was speak against religion. He basically spoke against all of the established religion all the time. And then they made a religion out of anti-religion. It's very strange, right? But the teachings are the same. Like the teachings are real and very profound. Not just in, and that's how I can tell his intentions, Jesus's intentions, or even presuming none of it even happened. Let's pretend nothing ever happened. Let's pretend it's just a story, which, I mean, it is, right? Nothing actually happened. It's a wacky one. But I mean, it's true. We're not actually doing anything. It does seem that way, doesn't it? It does. What we really have is just a really complex robot thing that we play with. Super complex. And we call that life, but life is actually of the spirit. Life has nothing to do with the flesh the way that we presume. Like without the consciousness, the flesh is just dead. Without the spirit, I mean, the flesh is just dead consciousness. Consciousness dead is still consciousness, if that makes sense. Like your dead body after you die is conscious. It's still consciousness. In fact, there's still going to be microbes and bacteria that feed on you to continue to evolve and grow from your death. And all of this, you become part of all of that. Float up into the atmosphere even. You know, your body, right? Which isn't what you are, of course. So I'm not sure why I went down that tangent, but when so to save the world, all we really want to do is unite the kingdoms, unite the nations. And how do we unite the nations? We just keep showing people how to love, how to be peaceful, how to love each other. That's all we have to do. Super simple. We have to just show each other that. In the spiritual community, we can get all wrapped up in the I call it like spiritual. It's like the spiritual mythos, or the spiritual narrative of things. As humans, we anthropomorphize everything and we give like frequencies a personality and stuff, and then that's how we sort of feel it. But they're more like light beings that are frequencies that have a name that's not a human name. You know, like all the archangels, for example. The reason they all end in L, Michael, Gabriel, because L means energy. They're energies, not beings. They're messenger energies, like frequency energies. They're not really beings the way we conceptualize them. And certainly we can, and there's no harm in it. There's no harm in it. It's just that what I'm saying is the truth of the metaphysics is that they're frequencies from divine conduits, we could say. And so they have personalities that humankind has put onto them. And so we can experience them with personalities, and it's great. It's very beautiful, actually. Like Archangel Michael, I have the Sword of Truth tattooed on my arm. And constantly am dealing with various archangels all the time. Actually, when I was talking about praying earlier, you know, this brings back something else I wanted to say, is that when an archangel comes to you, or a being with an archangel-like vibration, when they arrive to you in your actual, like, you could say proximity or space, you'll fall to your knees for sure, or fall on the ground, and you'll probably shake a bit. This is because it's really interesting metaphysically. This is because the vibrational resonance of the archangel causes sympathetic resonance in the human mind-body-spirit complex, and all of the systems basically just stop functioning almost. All of the body systems just stop working. You feel naked. You feel totally, absolutely naked, but it also feels totally fine that you're naked. You realize that they're seeing everything in you, and then you'll have a release of some kind. Like it's almost like they're some type of angelic surgeon just healing you. And it's a magical experience, but even that, like I said, I had this vision of like an angelic being because of the conditioning of Sean's experience. And so when I was talking about it with Master Ka said that basically that's why I see it that way. I see it as an angelic presence because of the conditioning of Sean, but it's really just a conduit that's been opened up into a divine channel, which we call Archangel Michael or Archangel Gabriel or whatever, whichever archangel, Metatron, etc. Interestingly enough, Metatron's the only angel without the EL at the end, as far as I know. Sarah says, people either calm down and embrace the peace, or they freak out even more because they're so unaccustomed. Yeah. Unable to rattle you. It's like an NPC character gaining sovereignty and they don't know what to do with it. It's a lesson in sovereignty. Do you want to keep repeating the same script you were programmed with, or choose your own? Choose one that embodies peace. Sarah says, it's very funny you said declaring peace in the room, as once a couple of years ago I woke up from a nightmare, and as I was waking I heard and felt Archangel Michael declaring peace, and it felt like so much more than a declaration, like a power move, just one word, peace. Yeah, actually, the way I do it is I like internally, I sort of say, be still and know the peace of God. Is, for me, that just calls me in. And then there's also an entity that I work with called Latui, and she gives me this reminder. I don't know how to describe it. If I do both of those things, if I just call Latui is a fifth density galactic entity. And if I call on Latui and do this at the same time, I can bring this stillness to myself. And it all happens very automatically. And I love Archangel Michael. Like, peace is the way. That's what one of the first things that he taught me, Archangel Michael, was like this. I have a sword so that I can like cut away the bullshit so that people can see that peace is the way. Like, that's what the sword of truth is about. About cutting away nonsense so that we can see peace and then live peace. And it becomes really obvious too, because when we are actually truly living peacefully, there isn't a conflict for us. So other people will approach us and be like, oh, blah, blah, blah. They might be upset. And we're like, I wonder what the problem is here. Like, you might go through this. So we have to try to hold compassion, but you might go through this sort of, I'm not sure that I'm not sure that I totally grasp. Are we in a fight? Is that what you're saying? Like, are we arguing about a thing, or like what's happening? I'm not even sure what's going on. I went through this myself anyway. And, you know, it's, I was rude about it a little bit by accident. I didn't mean to be. I was literally innocently ignorant of like what's happening. I truly don't understand what we're talking about, because I'm not understanding the negativity and the frequencies. So some of what they're sharing with me, like, I'm not hearing it, right? All I'm hearing is the good parts. I'm not hearing anything bad. So I'm like, I don't understand what the problem is. You have feelings? Or, you know, it's a little bit confusing sometimes. And so we have to be able to try to, again, even bring the Christ to that. Be like, how would God themselves see this? God, help me. How would you have me see this person? How would you have me see this soul? How would you have me be right now for this person? I think that's the way. That's the trick. That's the trick. E says, yes, I think that's why I'm reminded of the sweat lodge ceremony, because of purification, to cut away all the bullshit. Yeah, it's got to be cut away. Us lying to ourselves about our own vulnerability and limited being that causes us to think we need to heal, when the frequencies are here for us to just let it go. It's ready, like the kingdom is here now within, that's what it means. It's it's hard because we hold on to it, and so people resist it. So even when I'm saying these things, there's people probably that are watching that are sort of like, ugh, but I'm still struggling. And like, I'm trying to, as gently as I can, also say that it's our responsibility, if we're struggling, to notice where we're lying to ourselves about what the struggle is and how we're engaged in a part of an illusion that is causing us to think we're threatened by something. We want to claim that we're eternal and infinite beings, but then I have arthritis, and isn't that horrible? I mean, yeah, it's painful, right? I understand. Like my teeth are broken and stuff in the back, and I have a lot of teeth pains from that. I didn't take care of them when I was younger, and then they kind of like broke, and I had some root canals done, and then those things broke, and it all broke. So I have this like constant sort of pain in the mouth and jaw areas, and like I try to approach it all as like, isn't it comical? I've said this a lot, but isn't it funny that I could possibly think that like the pain in my gums actually like has a power over me? Wow. Like what a delicious illusion that is. Aren't we friggin' geniuses for being able to make this type of simulation or holographic experience as the divine? Isn't that beautiful? That I can even think that that's a thing? Wow. Right? That's my preferred way to try and depolarize it. To sort of be like, wow, it's just amazing. Amazing. And I think that's partly because of Master Ka's presence in me. Like, I don't think he's been invested in a frame as much as this in a long time or something. I'm not sure. But there's this like, wow. He helps me with that. Just like, holy smokes, this is how it feels? What? That kind of feeling. Like, whoa, you guys are nuts. Like, it's almost like he's completely confused at the human stuff. And if you look at some of the channelings of Ka from before, you'll see that like he's like he doesn't get it, the drama parts of things. He doesn't get it. He doesn't get it. He can't even understand it or really even see it. I used to erroneously go to him and say, Violet's World says, how do you tell that to a child, though? Tell her that her sickness has no power over her. I would never tell that to a child. I wouldn't tell that to a child. You know, luckily for me, I'm not placed in very many positions where I'm faced with working with a sick child. I'm grateful for that. However, if that becomes something that I need to do, I will. The way that I reconcile this for myself is that the sick child is a soul doing its thing. And lots of times souls sign up for, we could say, quick or challenging expeditions into consciousness to deliver particular types of lessons for others. Like, we sign contracts to do things that are like we can't understand. Like, for example, just, if we think about a baby that doesn't live past a year, for example, like, where's the sense in any of that, right? And what I'm saying is that this illusion is reflective of what hell is, and death itself. If we go back to what I was saying earlier, the death itself is an illusion, and the sickness in the child is not real. So I'm not saying that I would tell a child that their sickness is not affecting them. I would say that I know it's not real, I know. I don't tell them that. That would be very not compassionate of me. I would not be empathetic. It would not be loving to deny their experience. But if people are on this channel, if a child happens to come on this channel, then it must be okay for their soul. Who am I to withhold information from anything? I'm transparent. I share publicly. And if if a soul doesn't resonate, like, so for example, if I say that our wounds don't have any power over us, our traumas, our pains, and our problems don't have traumas over us or power over us, and people don't feel comfortable with that, that's okay. We don't have to. I'm never telling people that they have to believe me. And I would never approach someone that's in pain and say, hey, psst, your pain isn't real. That's not what I would ever do. No, I would validate and help to try and understand and see how I can bring Christ to the situation, bring love to the moment. If I see an opportunity to remind the child of how amazing they are, right? How just incredible they are. That's what I'll do. I'll try to affirm what's true. So while I'm hearing what is painful for them, I'll empathize with it. And I'll say, that sounds like it's very hard for you, or things like that. And then I'll talk about how amazing they are. That's what I would do. And so we're all each other's children as well, right? So that when you ask, like, would you tell another child that, I'm actually feeling already like I'm speaking to other children of God already. So no, I'm never saying that, like, just ignore the pain, or like it doesn't have power. And also we kind of think of children as innocent and not strong. Children are usually actually more strong than us. Than adults. They're actually more bendy, more the stuff doesn't sway them as much as we think it does. That doesn't make it better or worse. It doesn't make anything better. It's challenging to observe suffering, and that's the reason that I call this place hell. Because suffering's here quite a lot. So it's hell. And so what we're tasked with doing is bringing the kingdom into hell and transforming the kingdom into heaven. That's what it means. That's what the second coming of Christ means. Is Christ came first to show the precise intentions around sin and evil and control, and then crucifixion and resurrection to show that the illusion itself is not real. Don't believe what you see here, was one of the things he said when he was carrying the cross up to, what's it called, Golgoth, or whatever it's called. He taught that. Now the second coming of Christ is salvation, atonement, the atonement, the deathless death, and then the second death, or the resurrection. And that happens within us through doing these things, through bringing the Christ consciously as best we can. But that doesn't mean we tell kids that their pain isn't real and things. Like, we don't go around doing that. I'm doing that here for people that are interested in elevating their consciousness. But an 8-year-old that's in pain doesn't need that, right? Necessarily. And sometimes miracles come through us, and Jesus might, he walked to people and said, rise, your faith has made you well. If we're at that level, then great. Yeah, go get her, go get her, right? Heal them, help them rise. But what I'm trying to say is, we heal them by observing their perfection. That is how we heal them. We observe their perfection. We don't agree with their woundedness. That's not real. When we affirm another's woundedness, we're not seeing the Christ in them, in other words. And it's okay. It's hard sometimes because we see the wound, the pain, we see the trouble. It's really easy to see that. It's more apparent to us. Yeah, so we're learning to look past that because that part of it is part of the illusion of separation. That part of it is part of the story and narrative. Behind all that, there's an eternal soul that can't be hurt. That's the truth of the matter. So it's about shifting that, helps us to see the perfection in them. And we don't tie up, like, it sounds like it might be not compassionate, but we're saying, no, we respect and have compassion and honor the feelings that the human self's having and the identity self is having. We honor all of that. We know the truth still. We respect what's going on, but we honor the truth of the matter. If that makes sense. I know that's a very sensitive subject, and I hope I traversed it okay. You know, I am a father of 4. So, and when my children hurt, sometimes my child might scrape their knee and I get a tear. Like, I get it. So if, you know, observing children going through pain is one of the hardest things that I can fathom. It's one of the reasons I don't look at Facebook, because I have some friends that have like kids that are like going through chemotherapy and things, and I shouldn't say I don't look at Facebook for that. It's more like there was a part of me at a time before that didn't want to go on Facebook because of that type of thing. It made me uncomfortable. Now it's different, but before, because how could a righteous God, like, essentially these areas were areas I realized I was upset with God. How could a righteous and good God create that? That confrontation for me was too difficult for a time. Until I realized that God doesn't have anything to do with that. Those types of distortions of life, cancer, are a result of our human beliefs about what we are and our limitations. God sees us perfect children of God, doesn't understand all that stuff that we're creating. That's been my perception of what God's doing. God's not giving people sicknesses. People are creating their sicknesses without knowing, like, ignorant of it, not realizing, very innocent. It's not about fault or blame. We all create our own situation. We create our own reality. We want to say that we manifest our reality and we're the creators of our reality. We have to take responsibility for every single aspect of it. And when we realize that all beings are one being, there couldn't be someone against. It's just the universe living with us, through us, together. So there couldn't be an opponent. Even the sicknesses couldn't be an opponent. It must be a lesson. What else could it be but a lesson? To show us where our limitations are bringing us down. But that's really confronting to the part of us that feels limited. The part that resonates as the body is like, but wait, like, I was born without an arm or something. Like, I'm trying to take it to some of the extremes that the ego might go to try to defend. Well, you know, like, why would that happen? Why would God do that? No, God didn't do that. The soul chose to do that for some reason. The soul's running the show. The human doesn't choose anything, truly. It seems like it does, and the mind says, oh, look what I chose. But no, no, no. That's why they call free will also the law of confusion, because it's confusion to think that there's an individual will. It's one will, just flowing, consciousness, life, flowing, effulgent, one. That's all it is. There is no Sean will to do or not do, or there's Sean's mind going, oh, I've chosen that, I've chosen this, right? That's true. That Sean's mind's explaining what the divine will is doing. It doesn't actually know. Sean's mind doesn't really know what it's doing. Fun. Isn't it fun to not know what you're doing and be okay with it? I think that's the trick, to realize I have no idea what I'm doing, but I'm fine. And we dance. We dance on the moon. Surati says, I feel if they're our own children, we have a ton of power to help them. That focusing on our own ascension will help pull them up. And we will find the resources and best medical care the higher we are. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. There's different ordeals we go through. Maybe I'll do a video on this one day. In magic, we call them the Four Ordeals. These are the lessons that are on repeat. And each lesson corresponds to a particular element: air, earth, fire, and water. And basically, when we encounter an ordeal, we're meant to notice like what element is most appropriate to resolve this. So water being like love or emotion in the flow, like or air being intellect, earth being like physical, material things, right? Which is the most appropriate. And basically, eventually we learn that we don't know what's appropriate. And so we just go to God. We just automatically, just briefly, hey God, let me know. Let me know what's up, bro. We think it's gonna like take a minute. It's the most instantaneous thing. Instantaneously, you're gonna know exactly what to do. If you're open and authentically, humbly asking divinity, how do I show up as you would have me show up? Not, who cares what Sean thinks? Whatever Sean thinks is fine. Sean's not here right now. How do I approach? And the more we can do that in all of our moments with everyone, all the time, without getting hard on ourselves. We don't need to shame if we can't. Like, there's times it's too hard, and it's okay. But however we can do that, that's the way. That's why I always say Christ is the way, not Jesus. Jesus said, I am the way, but it was the Christ speaking as Jesus that said, I'm the way. Right? It's not Jesus is the way. Jesus is a great guy, fabulous guy, super chill homie. Right? But Christ is the way. So it's important that we understand that even it's really important, actually, the 144,000. This is significant. People think it's like 144,000 people or something. And I think I've talked about this before, but it's not. It's just the frequency of the illuminated Christ, the Christed presence in us holds that frequency. So the return of the Christ is about building a bridging to things like religion, things like government. How do we bring the Christ into government? The government's not going to want that, right? So we actually end up creating our own Christ-like government, which will end up probably being a council of 9. I wouldn't be surprised if there's 24 representatives of the various areas in the earth, and then they report to a council of 9. The 9 will be the most spiritually advanced on the planet. So that could be something for the ego to aspire to. I want to be the most spiritually advanced so I can become a part of the council of 9 that this weirdo on the internet told me might exist one day. But as above, so below. 9 will allow us to have balanced decisions in tumultuous frequencies. And the 24 associates that will respond from the various nations of the earth will inform the 9. And that's where the earth will go. We'll have 9 beings, 9 people that just vote. So it's like democratic, really. But for certain things, they'll probably have to have a unified decision. But anyway, that's where I see it going. And actually, there's reference to all of this in the Bible, probably. I couldn't tell you for sure, but I'm feeling that there is. The 24 elders or something. I've never read Revelation, so I don't know. But there's something about 24 elders. Yeah, Jesus is my homeboy. I got this new bracelet, and I love it. It's so amazing. When I look at the cross, this is important for me. When I look at the cross, I look at not the symbol. The cross is meant to represent the symbol of the body and material world. When we look at that, we're meant to see the unreality of the crucifixion. Like, Jesus wants us to know that he didn't die at all. That's what the teaching was. I did not die. Look, I'm back. Now I'm going to go hang out with Dad. Right? That was the teaching. So for me, and this is just my take on things, of course. But when I look at the cross and feel the cross, it reminds me that I'm not the frame. It's like the opposite, I think, of what other people are like with it. Sarah says, even the children are also on their own ascension journeys. Yes. I think it's helpful to remember and aid where we can their own soul retrieval from other traumatic lifetimes. This life is the one to pull it back together and ascend. I've experienced seasonally different ailments that killed me in other lives. The sick children aren't choosing to come here sick. It is dimensional bleed, though. Yeah, that makes sense. Like I said, the vibration here. So it depends. It depends. Both happen. Is what I'll say. It all happens that way. So souls do choose to come in and die. They do. Absolutely, they do. They decide to come in and be a small infant and die. They also choose to not be doing that. It depends on their contractual arrangements, really. And it's infinitely varied that way. Infinitely varied. So sometimes, like, for example, a wanderer, the biggest risk to incarnating as a wanderer is the veil, the forgetting. The risk is that the wanderer doesn't remember, the starseed, whatever, doesn't remember what they are. That's why most of the wanderers are 6th density wanderers, because they're more likely to remember. They're more confident that that risk is not a big deal. Eventually they'll realize, right? The problem is that before they realize, they get involved karmically in a bunch of shit. And when we get involved karmically, we decide as souls to repay debts that we've created through our own disharmonious activities, our own discernment of ourselves as a soul says to us, wow, I really, really hurt that person. Wow, I'm going to come be a gift for them. And then we do that. the gift doesn't necessarily look like a gift. It doesn't necessarily look like a gift. It might look like an absolute nightmare. But in that pain and struggle comes fortitude and strength after. It is a gift afterwards. After all of the healing, after all of the, after all that stuff. Sarah says, yes, I didn't mean they never choose to come in for a short incarnation, but oftentimes it's carryover traumas, yeah, and karma we are here to transmute, yep, and let go of and stop repeating. Karma is over. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, karma can be over. Right. That's part of the trick of it all. Karma is only over when the being is ready for karma to be over, right? Like, prior to them realizing karma itself is story and illusion. Like, prior to that, they're not necessarily ready to not be in karma. They can't grasp that yet. So Buddha taught it, Christ taught it. Even though the Eastern traditions taught that, it was like you have to do 1,000 lifetimes minimum or something. There were different ideas about this. None of that's real. That's karma. That's just like story, right? It's good for you to bring that up, that karma itself is an illusion. Now, it's important for someone to realize that just because they realize karma is an illusion doesn't mean it stops affecting them. It keeps pushing on you, whatever's been generated. It's not a intelligent force. It's a autonomous force. It is a universal mechanism of action, of cause and effect, right? So even when we realize karma is an illusion, karma still hits us from what we've participated in, what we've got involved in. It keeps hitting us. So this is important because it's one of the reasons we feel like, I'm a really good person. Why does this shitty stuff happen? Well, because there's stuff we need to see karmically. And if we can see them balanced, then we don't have a real problem with what attacks us, what comes at us. So karma itself, it's still there. It's just not real. It's not anything to worry about. It's just a thing, like stuff's coming. Yeah. Experience is coming. Yeah, of course. That's what happens. So as karma attacks us in its different ways, we just notice, oh, I get it. I must have got into some stuff or something. I must have hurt someone somewhere. I wonder what that's about. I wonder how I'm denying myself or did deny myself in the past. Or I wonder who I hurt and who I let down. And did I lie of omission? Where was I narcissistic? Right? Like we start to wonder, I brought this to me somehow. I'm not sure what I did, but and when we're open with God, it tends to become evident. Like, oh yeah, you used to have a lot of slaves, like years ago, many moons ago. You used to have a lot of slaves. That's what this is about. I haven't had that experience, but I just mean that's the type of thing that could come up. It could come up that I used to dominate people. So for me, I'll just share that this is a little vulnerable, but I have memory of being a priest, a Catholic, I believe, priest, and claiming to follow and love God, but in truth, I was just using God and the church to feel strong, feel powerful. I didn't hurt people really, but I misused the word of God and the word of Christ, and I misused these things. So for me, I used to, in that lifetime, I would speak all the time. And in this lifetime now, which I think is shortly after, I'm not as open about my feelings about God. Because in the past, I was using this God stuff as like a hobby, kind of like just trick people into trusting me so I could be their friend. Like, it wasn't weird, it wasn't gross, it wasn't anything crazy. It was just I was using God to trick people into trusting me. And so now I'm terrified of doing that again. And so that's karma, right? That's the karma of Sean's past life, is like an Irish priest somewhere. After being a druid and all these other things, right? So it's sort of, that stuff is known that that's not really a real thing. That was like a dream I had, right? And that's what we notice, is that karma itself's like a dream. That's how we transcend karma. We notice that it couldn't possibly be real. It couldn't be. The illusions that we play with each other and the stories we get into with each other couldn't be real the way that they seem to be. It must be that we're trying to wake each other up. It must be that we're serving each other to wake each other up. That must be what we're doing. Huh. Isn't it interesting that everyone's on my side? Wow. Isn't it amazing that I don't have any enemy anywhere? I couldn't possibly have an enemy. God's on my side. God's in my heart. Where's the enemy, right? I don't know. You tell me. And Sarah says, LOL, my apartment caught fire a while ago and it was traumatic. I thought it was karmic, but I believe sometimes bad things happen to good people due to collective consciousness, that I wasn't supposed to live there. I'm much happier in my new place. That's the other thing. So karmically, one time I was put in a mental facility, but there was a woman that was having a crazy abusive experience that was there when I was there. I won't go into the details because honestly it's gross. So I realized I was actually there to help her. Like, it had nothing to do with anything other than that. That's the only reason I was there, was her. She was faithful her whole life. Like, I gave her a bracelet and stuff, and I realized the only reason that I was there was for her. It had nothing to do with karma or anything. My soul was called to serve, and I made sure that I got there. And I thought I was being punished. Like, I thought that I've been wrong. Like, people are upset. They're putting me in a mental facility for some reason. Like, I must have, I've done something. But not this time. No, I didn't do anything. I was barely even being weird. It was the weirdest thing. It was like, no matter what I did or said, I just had to go. And it's like, they're like, hey, you seem sad. And I'm like, do I? Oh, well, how are you, brother? And then they're like, you don't seem sad at all. Why are we, they're almost driving me to the thing. We're talking about Halo and video games, driving me to the hospital. And he's like, you don't seem sad at all. Like, and then with all the cops in the lobby, we're oming, and we're having a great time. And they're all like, none of this seems like you need to be here at all. Yet I'm still there, and I still get put away for like 5 days. But it seems like that's a karmic thing. It seems like And maybe it is, maybe part of it is, but I don't even see any of that anymore. It's just like, oh, obviously I was supposed to be there for that person then. Like, that person needed someone to like hold them and hold their hand a little bit and just say, it's okay. I see you. It's okay. That particular woman. If I wasn't there, then who would have done that? No one else would have done that. That was there. The nurses wouldn't do that. They were just happy to yell at her and call her schizophrenic, right? So it ended up being this obvious thing that there isn't necessarily karmic repercussion happening. It could be, but sometimes we're put in places that we're not comfortable with humanly. Like, I was not happy to be put there. I was not happy about that. But when I realized why I was there, I became like, I'm grateful to be of service. Once I realized. But that's, you know, it was hard. It's hard to have your freedom taken. Like your human freedom taken from you. Especially when there doesn't seem to be a cause for it. Part of you is like, this has to be illegal. It has to be illegal. But it's not. It's not illegal. At least in my country. So yeah, I think that's a good time to end. I think you guys are amazing. I love all your faces. Thank you for all the comments. Thank you for all the hanging out and for giving me your attention, your kind hearts. I know some of the stuff that I said is a bit annoying. I get it. I know. It's annoying. I'm annoying. I think truth, the light, is annoying sometimes. Like we get annoyed by our own light. The truth of what we are is, it'd be much safer if I could just pretend. Thank you guys so much. All the blessings.